Expectation, as we know, is the thief of joy. We are finding out the hard way in Cleveland with the Cavs. And did you allow it to ruin your weekend for the Guardians against the Braves? We're going to talk about why you shouldn't on today's Locked On Guardians.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
As people are loving that new intro I saw again in the comments from some of our everydayers. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. It's not often that it's guaranteed, so take advantage of that. That's $150. Win or lose, visit FanDuel.com/get started. I am Jeff. Over there is Justin. We won't do the intro, but I will say when we do the intro, it is because the network tells us to. That has become such a contentious thing at random points in the history of this podcast that it's the network. It's not us. We think our takes are hot enough that we don't need to let you know our background of why this is good. We do want to thank everyone who's been joining us, though. Our numbers have been utterly fantastic, and we have all of you to thank for that. I just want to say, like, I'm feeling good. Was it what I wanted? No. Was it especially brutal? Because Sunday was arguably one of their uglier games this year. Poor execution, blown leads, the first bullpen game. But they faced a World Series team, one of the 5 best teams in baseball, a team built to win it all. And I listened to the alternative broadcast. I think everyone knows that. I like to hear what the other side has to say. And the Atlanta announcers came away really impressed with Cleveland. And Cleveland gave Atlanta all they could give. Like, yeah. Would have been great to win the series. They nearly did it. I'm not sitting here sad. I'm not sitting here not following this team or taking a day off. Like I still think the results were good for this past weekend.
Yeah, I mean, there's 2 ways you can look at it, right? You can be encouraged by the fact that it was a close series, or you could be disappointed because they had a chance to win the series on Sunday, and that should make you feel good that they had a chance to come away with the series win. I mean, we'll definitely talk about what ruined their chances on Sunday, obviously, but I think we have to remember, too, someone made a comment on Friday. I know who this is. Maybe you can remember who it is, Jeff, but somebody made a good comment. We were talking about the big series ahead, whatever, and they said, yeah, it might seem like a big series to fans and to people in the media, but for the team, it's just another series, and that's a good point. This is still an April series, and it's still just it's just 3 of 162. And that's how the team's going to look at it, because that's how they have to look at it. It's a bigger storyline because these 2 teams have a lot of wins in the month of April. And right now that doesn't really mean a whole much of anything other than the fact that you're not buried like the White Sox or the Astros. So you could be disappointed by the fact that they didn't win the series, or you could be disappointed by the fact that they blew their chances, the fact that they should have won the series, quite frankly, on Sunday. Or you can just be encouraged. They played good baseball for the most part, and there were a couple things on Sunday that led to their downfall, which we can talk about. But overall, I don't have a whole lot of negatives to talk about. I mean, I don't know how you could. Like, you can sit there and, we'll point out the things they didn't do well on Sunday, and then you can talk about Logan Allen and kind of unraveling and not hitting Chris Sale. But after that, there's not a whole lot of things to press on that were too terrible. We can dig into the minutia, but overall, I was surprised by the lack of offense, truthfully, Jeff. That was 12 runs this weekend to the Guardians 10. Not a single home run was hit in the series, which was very surprising.
Some came close.
Yeah, Austin Riley came close a bunch of times there. Stephen Kwan was at the wall, like, I don't know how many times in the series, but just very surprising overall. But I also want to ask, too, like, if the Guardians were not, 18-7 coming into this weekend, let's just say they were hovering around 500, would you have expected them to even compete in this series? But now that they came into the weekend 18-7. Did that change the expectation? Like, and that's probably a conversation we need to have later in the coming weeks here, is that if expectations have changed based on April's performance or not, and if that's even fair. But did the expectations based on how they've played up into this point, did it change how people looked at the series in Atlanta? Did it change how you looked at it because of how they played so far?
I mean, yes. As much as I'm sitting here saying, like, well, I'm happy with how it went. in the grand scheme of things. I also was hoping for, to win this. I was sitting there like texting, my dad and I were texting, and it being like, man, they're about ready to take the series from one of the best teams in baseball, as I was trying to help him through stuff. And it's just, you've gotten so used to them winning that you do kind of expect them to pull it off. And it's disappointing that they didn't, but at the same time, am I like, angry or disappointed? No, because this has still been a fun ride.
It has been. I do think some people's expectations change because you're having a good April more than most people expected, because typically this team has never been off to good April starts, but that always changes based on who's on the roster, and I have no idea why that is. And the pitching hasn't been as good. At least the starting pitching hasn't been as good. But are you frustrated by the finale, about how they ended? Or are you more encouraged the fact they had a chance to win that game? Because some people are going to look at this as glass half full, and you're saying it's a good loss, or you're giving them bonus points for a good loss, and there are no good losses, and because in pro sports, because a loss is a loss, and there are no style points, as we talked about too. But like, I don't know, is it too much to say, we're being too positive, because we get accused of being too negative all the time, right? For some reason,
or too positive. We get both.
We do get both.
Honest.
So are we going to be accused of being too positive because we're saying that we're encouraged by the fact that they had a chance to win this series on Sunday and they didn't? And really, it was their own mistakes that cost them the chance to win. It wasn't anything Atlanta did. Atlanta took advantage of the mistakes, but there was a couple things that Cleveland gave them that should have allowed them to win the series. But are we going to be accused of being too positive by taking that viewpoint and saying, well, you're just looking at a glass half full and there's no good losses?
I mean, we can get accused of that, but I guess the thing is, I don't care.
Well, no, because it's our honest take. I mean, it doesn't matter what you say
it's
or
one
not.
Of those
it's our
things
honest
where, if this team was, not good, we would have expected them to have a rough weekend. But since they have been solid, we do kind of hold them to a bit of a higher, degree of acceptance. And someone might say it is a little Pollyanna-like, but at the same time, they've been a good team. This is their second series loss all year, and it's one they could have easily won. And I don't know. I'm trying to live a positive life, and when things fall apart, I'll be the first. Like last year, people know I had no problems being negative, being the person to say, like, good teams find ways to win, bad teams find ways to lose. And one could argue, yes, they found ways to lose on Sunday, but I think most of the year we've seen this be a good team that finds ways to win. And that's why, it's disappointing, but I'm also not too down in the overall result, because of I think they'll rebound. I think they'll do well. They're doing well for the most part.
And it was things they can control too, which is the thing you look at the most. Like you can be frustrated by that, which they're frustrated by that, because those are things that are within their control. It was Stephen Kwan being picked off in the 10th inning, which shouldn't happen. And Jose Ramirez, who usually doesn't make any base running mistakes, he ends up not sliding at second, and that cost them a chance to score a run in the 10th inning. And Hunter Gaddis, we'll talk about Hunter Gaddis a little more in the second segment, but Hunter Gaddis to me did not, I don't want to get too much into it now because I do want to save it, but he did not pitch bad on Sunday. I think he made some good pitches that got hit, and I'll talk about that more later, but the pickoff throw is what ultimately cost him the run too. So you've got the errant pickoff throw, you've got two base running blunders. Those things are all things you can control. Those are fixable things. It's not as if the Braves came out and the Guardians hung with them for 6 or 7 innings, and then the Astros just beat them over the head with a bat and then became the better team. Like Cleveland was just as good as they were all weekend long. And a couple of, again, mistakes you can control are what cost you on Sunday. And then we could probably talk about Emmanuel Clase and the usage in the extra inning thing, because
not the ideal place for him.
I'm not going to nitpick here about Vogt, because I know some people want to, because the bullpen was good overall. But for whatever reason, Emmanuel Clase in extra innings just does not work out well ever. And that runner, the Manfred runner rule on second for him, just always plays out poorly in his favor because of his penchant to give up a lot of contact, even though it's weak contact sometimes. And that ball that was a game-winning hit by Riley was hit 80 miles an hour. It wasn't like it was scorched. It was just perfectly hit, which he was due for one, because the screaming out he made Saturday in the Guardians win was probably a game-winning hit or something if he hit it anywhere else but the dead center. So he was probably due for it. That's how baseball works. But Class A in extra innings is just such a disaster all the time, and it's just unfathomable to think about, honestly.
Yeah, he was at the Atlanta broadcast said something like right-handed hitters are hitting 300 against him. I was like, that can't be true. Is that true? I didn't bother to go look it up.
I don't know, but it's probably BABIP related, isn't it?
Yeah, it's all BABIP. It's all BABIP. It's like lefties can't touch him, but it seems that he is.
I don't know. All right, well, I do know. I want to talk about the number 42%. I want to talk about Ben Lively. We want to talk about Tanner Bibee, more about Gaddis. And we want to talk about some minor leagues and draft stuff before we get into the off-day stuff. So that's what you have to look forward to. So 42%. While you are listening to some other things, mull over the number 42%. Are you mulling over what to get mom for Mother's Day? Look, DoorDash can solve that for you. You can get 50% off your next order, up to 15 when you spend 15 or more on your next flour, convenience, grocery, or retail order on DoorDash with our code LOCKEDONMLB. If whatever mom wants on Mother's Day, whatever she likes, don't have to be a big hassle about it. Don't be the son or the daughter that is going to the store the Saturday before, or don't be the one thinking through all kinds of things on different websites. Go to DoorDash. Get something thoughtful for her, whether it's the latest in tech, some kind of gift card, self-care stuff, just even flowers, something sweet if mom likes sweets. If she's into outdoor stuff, gardening, all that stuff you can get over on DoorDash. So make her proud and use some savings too while you're at it. I know she'd be proud of that for sure. $0 delivery fee, reduced service fees, all that is available on all drawers from Dash Pass as well. Should you meet the minimum subtotal? So get all your Mother's Day gifts in one place. And 50% off your next order, up to 15 when you spend 15 or more on your next flour, convenience, grocery, or retail order with our code LOCKEDONMLB. That's locked on MLB, all one word, all uppercase. Order using DoorDash today. Terms apply. Maybe one of those things mom likes to do is play games. I will say, I was playing Monopoly Go before Jeff and I started recording. It is addicting and it's competitive. It's a very wild game. It is a fun twist on the classic Monopoly board game. Go and roll your dice, go around the board, and you can knock out other people's stuff, take money. I tell you what, I was knocking people's property over with the crane. That was a lot of fun. I was stealing some money out of their vaults. Lots of fun stuff to taunt your friends. Monopoly Go just feels exciting, and there's a ton of other things you can do, and you can play on crazy different boards in different cities as well. It's a lot of fun. So always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go. Timed events help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win on rent. Frenzies, always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go. So get off the bench and go download it free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on. No game for the Guardians on Monday, but you can listen to all the action as they take on the Astros Tuesday through Thursday on your Sirius XM app. All right, real quick, Jeff, 42%. Why does 42% matter?
Is it stranded base runners?
Oh, I don't know. It could be. I very well could be because that happened. No, it is Tanner Bibee's whiff rate on his slider on Saturday in his great start. The Braves took 24 swings on the sliders that Tanner Bibee threw. They came up empty 10 times. Pretty darn good. I want to talk real quick about Tanner Bibee, and that was probably the best start of his career. Are we probably in agreement on that?
I think pretty much everyone who watches he's never had a better start.
The start against the Cubs last year was pretty good, but the Cubs lineup is nowhere near as good as the Braves. He didn't walk a batter. He was ahead of guys all night, 2 hits. Has ace Tanner Bibee arrived? Is this the arrival of ace Tanner Bibee with this start?
I think you and I would argue he's already the ace. I mean, yeah, this is definitely maybe a leveled up relative to what we've seen, but still, that was a performance, right? Like that was a performance for, I don't know if I want to say for the ages, but he looked so good. And
first start of the show, 7 innings for the Guardians.
And unfortunately, no win for him, showing why pitcher wins are worthless as a stat.
Right. Yeah. He was going to go 8. Vote said he wanted him to go 8, but there was a big break because the Guardians scored 2 runs in the top of the 8th, and he said it was sitting too long. He didn't want to go back out with that. So he went to Gaddis, which we'll talk about here in a second because that ended up being a bad thing. But I also want to caution here. You and I are the biggest supporters of Tanner Bibee or believers in Tanner Bibee of anybody without the last name of Bibee that I can imagine. This is the kind of outing you and I believe Bibee is capable of every time out. But I also want to be fair to Tanner and say that he only had one full year of minor leagues baseball, right? Like 2022 was his only minor league season. He got 3 starts, I want to say, last year in the minors before he got called up, and he had to stay up all year until the was it like I forgot what the injury was at the end of the year. It was minor, but that caused in the last like 2 or 3 games. And then, this year I don't want to say he's thrust into the ace role, but he kind of is because of the issue. Bieber's out, McKenzie you can't count on, and everybody else in the rotation. You're missing Williams. Like de facto, he is the ace. But I also want to say, like, there's still some growing for him to do, and consistency is one of those things. So it's also not fair to expect from him every time out. But this is the kind of thing I think he's capable of
every time
because he's still young. I think people forget how young he is, like in terms of baseball experience. Like he pitched 1 year in the minors, literally 1 year. That's not always the case. So it does show how good he is. It's just, I want to temper expectations and say, I think he'll get there. It's just, to expect that every time out, I think is a little much now.
Every time. Every single time.
Okay. All right. Hunter Gaddis did not pitch well Saturday. I will say that. I think he left a lot of pitches in the middle of the plate. But if you go and look at the pitches he gave up hits on Sunday, Ozzie Albies, the ball, I think it was a changeup. He just reached out over the plate. It wasn't even a strike, honestly, and hit it for a hit. And then the ball to Olsen. If the infield is not played in there because of the runner on third, which, again, the runner was on third because of Gaddis' pickoff throw. It's his fault. But that ball by Olsen that drove in the run, that's caught if Acuna's not on third because the infield was in, and it was not a strike. It was a bad ball, and Olsen hit it, so credit to him. But I don't think Gaddis pitched bad on Sunday. I think the big mistake was the pitch to Acuna was a bad pitch, so that started it off, and then he threw the pickoff, which is Gaddis' mistake. So outside of Acuna, he pitched really well. Whether it was pitching to him or the pickoff play, all that. But I also like the idea of Vogt going back to him so quickly. I know people weren't a big fan of that. I was, because he said, you want to get him out there the next day and get him, try to erase that Saturday from his mind. And this is the guy you have ridden at this point of the season to put into that spot. Like, you have pretty much declared he is your top setup man. He is going to go in high leverage spots, and he's pitched well. So for you to run from him after one bad outing, with the first bad outing of the season, doesn't look real good. So I think it's the right move to go back to him on Sunday with the confidence and just make a better pickoff throw next time. I don't know.
I was texting with you about was I did kind of wonder if this was some small degree of him pitching at home for the first time. He was a Georgia kid in college and high school and all of that. And we saw, like, last year when Tanner went to San Diego, that there was a degree of him maybe pressing when he first went out to California. So I did wonder about that. It's the first time we've really seen Gaddis struggle all year, if we're being honest. And he did it in back-to-back times. And it was absolutely the worst time. And it's either that or it's like somehow either only Gaddis or Barlow can be good.
Yeah, only one. What is your?
There can only be one.
Reference? There can only be one. I still have never seen Highlander, but I know that reference now just from this show, so that's great. Yeah, I mean, Barlow was magical over the weekend. There's no denying that. He was. I couldn't believe he got out of that inning on Saturday, and then Sunday he came back and was even better with 3 strikeouts. He has found his rhythm, which is really great. But yeah, I mean, I guess there could have been a degree of nervousness for Gaddis, but again, Saturday he left pitches over the plate. Sunday, I don't think. Again, the pitch to Acuna was left over the plate. Then there was the pickoff throw, and after that, he was fine. It's just he got beat, and I think you also have to acknowledge that the Braves offense is good, and they get runners on base. They do a great job, as they said all weekend. I don't know. Acknowledge them. See if anybody gets that reference. Acknowledge them. Acknowledge me. We'll see who gets that reference on here. I've only gotten into that recently, but I thought he was fine, and he's going to be fine. I'm not worried at all. Yeah. I think, again, like I said, you have put him in this position to be your setup man all year, so you got to go with what got you there at this point, and it's only April, but I was okay going back to him on Sunday. I know some people were not.
Yeah, it's, he's been awesome. It was his first earned runs. It happened, unfortunately, in back-to-back games. But we'll see, how he comes back. And this is important because, like, you're going to slip. We saw, completely non-related to this team. Go look what just happened to Jackson Holiday after all the hype, right? Like, development is not linear. There's ups and downs. Just need to, acknowledge that is part of it. He had a bad weekend. Hopefully he's going to bounce back.
Yeah. All right, coming up, if you're watching on YouTube, check out this. I
got it right.
This, Jeff already got it right. He ruined it, but that should guess this Savant page. I'll read off some data for the audio portion after we get back. But little fun thing, I just came across this Savant page, and I was like, oh, that really surprised me. So we're going to play Guess That Savant page here on Locked On Guardians in just a second.
It's playoff time in the NBA and NHL, and God, don't we know it in the NBA right now? Baseball's in full swing, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every single game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150, win or lose. That's a special event, guys. This is not something they do all the time. If you've been on the fence, you want to jump in now when it's guaranteed. When it's not a win or lose, when it is not win or lose and not just win. So now is your shot. Bet on everything from slash shots to home runs to slam dunks, all slam dunks, not slam ducks. I don't know what those are. On the app that is safe, secure, and easy to use. What are you waiting for? Don't want to use the fly-by-night app? Use your security. Visit FanDuel.com/locked on and make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel, America's #1 sports book.
Check out the Guardians back in action on Tuesday against the Reds. The Reds. Wow. You said Ducks. I said Reds against the Astros in Houston at 8:10 Eastern on your Sirius XM app. I'm not sure why I said Reds. That's interesting. Because there's a lot of red, Jeff, on this Savant page that we're talking about. For those that are listening on audio, I'll just say this. It is pretty red on the WOBA, or ex-WOBA. Pretty red on expected batting average. Very red on average exit velocity. Very red, 90th percentile hard hit rate. 78th percentile whiff rate. 75th percentile strikeout rate. 57th percentile walk rate, which was to be expected, but arm value is not what I expected to see here. 97th percentile. But
Knock was always on the arm.
Right. Every category. Sprint speed, range is not good. It's -1, which isn't terrible.
Yeah, don't look at the defense. Yeah.
It's all red except for like 3 spots. Very surprising. Jeff guessed this right. And it is Tyler Freeman, who
we talked a little bit on Thursday or Friday last week about it.
Yeah.
He was red everywhere. But
he didn't have a great weekend. He was fine. He had a double Friday. He had 2 walks Saturday, which again, great for him for the walks. And then on Sunday. And then Sunday. Just overall, I'm very surprised.
He hit the ball hard this weekend. Unfortunately, it was not. If you go look at his Savant page, you actually want to look below that data and look. And the big thing you'll see is the change in launch angle. That has been significant for his success. Listen, he killed a lot of worms for a long time, and that made him not successful. That was what was holding him back, was being a guy with like launch angles under 10 degrees. Now his 2 hardest hit balls, I believe, on Sunday were also Saturday. We're under 10 degrees. But overall, I think he's at like 13% on the year. So that is the walks are extremely positive. That is extremely positive. And that's why, like, I'm holding out some hope that we're going to see some more success. I mean, offensively, he's below average, but the data shows a guy who's maybe being a little unlucky. So I'm hoping and betting on some rebounds for him.
I do too. I mean, his hard hit rate is 52%, which is good. He was never that high in the last 2 years when he's gotten very limited opportunities. But yeah, you're right. The launch angle has changed so much. It was 6.2
like 5
last
or 6
year.
degree. Yeah.
It's 12.4 now, so it's up 6 degrees. That matters. You need to get into the teens, and that's where he needed to get. So he could be a slightly above average offensive player. And yeah, the arm value is really good. He's done a good job throwing guys out in center field and keeping guys.
He's got to work on the routes. You were like Saturday, he'll get there. It's just reps. Like Saturday was rough for him.
Yeah, that blooper got in between him and Brennan. That cost them, but overall he's going to be fine. But no, really encouraging. So just very surprised to see that. When I looked at his Savant page, I was like, wow. And that's not always a great way to judge players. Let's be honest about that and say that a snapshot from a Savant page is not always a great way to like say, well, this guy is good and this guy isn't. Because context matters. But I was not really, given the numbers, expecting to see just a lot of red there, which is usually what's good. Another guy who's got a lot of red, Jeff, is Ben Lively. How much do you believe in Ben Lively? Is he pitching his way into being an option in this rotation long term?
Like, for those who don't know, they actually drafted him out of high school and were unable to sign him. So it took a long time to get Ben. I'm like, was this destiny? Was this like, if he had been here all along, would he have been? And we joked, it's like, okay, so he's doing it against Boston. Boston's a mediocre offense. I mean, I just in our power rankings,
they scored 17 runs against the Cubs over the weekend.
I put Boston in the top 12 teams in baseball, by the way, based on like their recent play. Maybe it's top 15. Right. I can't remember exactly. But then to do it against Atlanta, you would have liked to have seen him go deeper, obviously. But like,
that's a tough lineup. They worked him hard.
It is. Yeah. And it was another really strong performance. And I mean, it was funny again watching the Atlanta broadcast. We're like, oh, well, he bounced around and Cleveland gave him a minor league contract and he was only up due to injuries. I'm like, none of that's the case. But
yeah, some of the details today were really missed on a lot of ends, let's just say.
So yes.
I won't go into all those details, but yeah,
he's earned the reps. So like he is in there to stay. We could discuss Carrasco threading a line. We can discuss the whole situation with McKenzie and our concerns there. But like for now, until we see some implosion or some regression to mean, like I think he has earned this spot.
I mean, there's really nobody else taking it from him. Let's be honest, because Gavin Williams is on the shelf for the week, and then they're hoping in 7 days. He had a PRP injection, which is a platelet-rich injection, so they're hoping to have faster healing. Based on the news we normally see around that, that's usually longer than a 7-day thing.
Yeah,
that's usually for guys who are going to be out like for like some months at a time. Like I think
that happens before massive surgery.
Yeah, Garrett Cole, I want to say, had a PRP injection, and he's resting right now, and they don't know when he'll be back. They're hoping May, but I don't think he's even throwing yet. So usually that's not like a week-long thing. So I don't know. We'll see. Maybe it won't be the case here, but generally that is followed by a lengthy absence when you do a PRP thing because you need rest and recovery. But let's cross our fingers. So there's no one taking the spot for him, that's for sure. So really he could be pitching with a lot of confidence because no one's coming for his job right now. So, and he's pitching well. He's holding on to it. And people are like, bring up Curry. But it's like, again, Curry did not pitch well over the weekend, by the way. He gave up some home runs. He's given up, I think, 5 home runs over his last 10 innings in AAA. And I'm not like, Curry's fine. It's just, it's a long season. He's going to be back up and you're going to need him at some point because something's going to happen. But you need a lot of pitchers and they don't have any healthy pitchers. So thank God for Lively pitching as well as he did. I'm just amazed. This guy throws 90 miles an hour and his fastball works in the zone. It just works. Like they're not tattooing his fastball. You would think that his fastball would be destroyed, but he got 2 swings and misses on it today out of 6 swings. And the sinker got 6 swings and misses out of 22. And I'm like, this is just wild. They couldn't catch up to the fastball. I don't know. Hitting's hard, I guess. But the pen, as you said, Jeff, was good. It's getting better. I know Hunter Gaddis wasn't great. And the whole thing with the Class A in the 9th and then extra innings. I just think Class A should never pitch an extra innings again. I'm just going to be honest about that.
He just has the weirdest BABIP luck.
It's weird. Someone texted me and said, they threw him in the 9th inning on Saturday. They're like, I don't like this tie game in the 9th inning Class A. And I said, no, do it now because if you do it in the 10th inning, it's going to be bad. And that's what happened Saturday. So I only thing I can say is please never pitch Class A in the 10th inning. If you're in the 9th inning and it's tied or you're winning, use Class A. Don't wait to the extra innings because it's just very weird. Things just don't work out for him. But Barlow was great. Smith was good. Nick Sandlin had a heck of a weekend. Great for Nick Sandlin. Guy who didn't have
nice rebound. I mean, that's the thing. Almost everyone did well outside of Class A and Gaddis.
I'm not even going to blame Class A because it was one hit. It's just, it is what it is.
Yeah.
But Sam Henches pitched on 2 games over the weekend. He was supposed to pitch Friday and Saturday, but the Saturday game got rained out. So he pitched Sunday, 11 pitches, 2 strikeouts. Pretty good chance he is going to be with the Guardians when they go to Houston this week. So I would imagine that spot by Pedro Avila is where it's going to go, but we'll see. But, that's great. You're going to get Henches back. That's another great arm to have. And then, at some point you'll have Andrew Walters. I don't want to reveal too much because I was going to say it from my other podcast, but I talked to Rob Cerfolio last week, the Guardians director of player development. We were talking about Walters and something they do this with a lot of guys, but this is more attention here. But they talked to Vogt about, how would you use Andrew Walters and how would you use this guy and how would you use this guy? So they try to mimic these situations in the minors of how they'd be using the majors to get these guys ready for that. So they're using Walters in a variety of ways in the minors to get him used to how he would pitch in the majors. So I think Walters is, again, coming soon. He was great over the weekend again. He has 22 strikeouts in 10 innings. Like, he is just almost unhittable. Now he has a splitter to go with the fastball and a slider that's okay. Like, at some point he's going to be up, and I think he'll be up before, he might even be up before Franco Aleman, even though Aleman is, closer to the 40-man deadline.
Yeah, but you drafted him because you knew he was coming quick.
Yeah. Chase DeLauder missed 3 games over the weekend. So Thursday night, he left the game in Akron. He came up a little ginger after running down a fly ball. He didn't catch it. He was running down a double in center field, and immediately he stopped, and a trainer came out and he walked off, and they said he was walking a little gingerly. It was not a very obvious injury, and then he was supposed to be back in the lineup Saturday, and then he was a late scratch. Then he didn't play Sunday, so keep an eye on that. We'll see what happens there. He does have the history of the foot injury.
Long injury history.
And then we're not going to have time to get into this today, but we do want to talk about some promotional stuff as far as, in the minors. People want Messick needs to be in AA. Tugboat, who became an overnight sensation Thursday, which good for him. That's awesome. We should get more into that because there's a lot of stuff going around about him that I just, it's just wild. But he had a great day Thursday. And
Justin discovered Tugboat. By the way, how did we discover Tugboat? Because Justin
didn't discover him. I did his name on a leaderboard.
You were the first person to ever mention this guy when he and I were having discussions.
It's probably off air.
And it probably was, but he found him looking at Cape data. Again, how important is Cape data? That's right. Where Justin was like, hey, this is a guy we need to talk about. And then you looked up his measurements and were like, can he be a real prospect? And then they drafted him. So
I admit, I saw the body type and I was like, oh, probably not. Like, as a pro athlete, like I admittedly wrote him off because of that, and the Guardians didn't. Good for them. And we'll see what his future looks like. I think a lot of people have kind of taken some liberties with that performance, and I feel bad for him because you're creating some expectations, but he deserves his due for how well he pitched, but things have really blown up, which is wild. But Tugboat's a great, well, by all accounts, is a fantastic kid and deserves the accolades. Yes. Just, there are things that people see that just go well beyond the scope of reality sometimes. So I think Jeff Tuesday's show is going to be very, very draft heavy. There's some draft stuff we want to get into today.
We also got some prospect guys. We got
Guardians aren't playing Monday, so it's a good time for it. So, Charlie Condon set the record for Georgia home runs over the weekend in a single season and career.
Who isn't setting home runs this year? That is
we'll talk about that. Our buddy Carlos Colazo shared some great data on Twitter that we'll talk about a little more. We did our mock draft, a 10-pick mock draft on Thursday. If you go back and look, or Friday, go back and look at that. So if you are a fan of the draft and the minors, Tuesday will be a very prospect and draft heavy show as the Guardians are off on Monday. So tune in for that. I know some people aren't as big of fans for that, but on an off day.
Yeah, we also got to talk Manzardo. Like we
will talk Manzardo as well, and because there's a lot of stuff going on there too, as far as promotions and roster fit and everyone jumping on that train too. So it'll be a very prospect heavy day Tuesday. So hopefully you get excited for that and tune in.
No, 100%. There's just always so much to talk about and not enough time, unfortunately. But thank you all to everyone who joined us. Here's my question for the day. I've seen a lot of belly aching about Laureano. Justin's leaving now because I already told him I was going to do this. So in the comments, you can't say neither. That's illegal. Who would you rather have right now as a 26-man, Laureano or Straw? Thank you to everyone who joined us, all of our everydayers. We really appreciate you. Remember to rate and review, download daily. It helps. Everydayers like Stephen K. I'll get back to your DM soon, dude. Sorry, it's been crazy busy. But thank you all, and go Guardians.
Merry Christmas.